best at social media yet.
No problem.
Let's see.
All right, looks like we're live on X, but I hear echo. Let me see. Is that on my end or your end? Give me a second. I can find it. Yeah, looks like we're live. I have it on X. I will tag you right
I
now.
have an echo.
I'll tag you. There we go. But I think this will be a fun conversation overall. Once I do this, then we can sort of get going, if that's cool.
What kind of well, I'm just interested in
Yeah.
what kind of system you're using over there.
Boy, this bad boy. I'm just
Yeah. No,
I'm
no,
just
no. Like,
kidding.
are you using like what StreamYard or like what are you
Oh,
streaming?
yeah, we could talk about that. I can share with you. I can teach you all that. But I'm using like OBS. So that's how I have like
Oh, okay. I've got that.
yeah, so it's all super easy and I just got a camera and a mic. You don't have to have this fancy mic. I got it for some other things, but yeah.
Yeah. I got one here. It's just
How
not hooked
cool.
up.
How cool. How cool. Well, why don't we get into it? So,
Let's go.
so for everyone, actually, let me see. Just let me hit the record button real quick. All right. So for everyone watching, my name is Jonathan Deleon. Here sharing positive vibes and help on a lot of resilience and compassionate insights. And I'm here with Karre Huff. So, Karre, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing great. So yeah, why don't you tell myself? I mean, I've taken a look at some of your tweets. I've seen some of the cool stuff that you're doing. I'm also super interested. For I'm also going through a period of change as well.
Mhm.
I'm also happy to share with that. So why don't we just have a conversation? I'll put
Okay.
all this away and just why don't you just tell me like from your eyes who is Karre Huff?
Good grief. Well, I have a. I'm just. Do you know this word philomath?
No, not
It,
sure.
it means a lover of learning, and I recently heard that word, and I was like, that's exactly what I am, because I just really, really like to learn anything, and so I. Let's see. When I was a kid, I wanted to make movies. That's all I cared about. I majored in film. I was a producer for a while in Dallas and then an editor in LA. And it led me down a path of addiction and destruction eventually. Um, and I was always an overachiever. So I really did it right. I went to the very, very depths of hell in my addiction. But what happened was that I had no connection spiritually anymore. And
What age was this, if you don't mind me asking?
it was between 23 and 30.
All right.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, I grew up in church as a kid,
Okay.
but in college, I had a lot of science, which pulled me away from that. I won't go into all of the details, but I had an anthropology teacher that basically explained away every belief I ever had scientifically. And so I was like, well, there's really nothing except what I have here and now. My ideas about religion completely shifted. And ironically, and when I look back, that's the time my drinking really started picking up. So the further I got away from my connection to spirituality, higher power, whatever you want to call it, the deeper I went into my addiction. And when I was at the very, very bottom, I was just thinking about this before we jumped on. It was right at Christmas time in 2008, and my mom was begging me to go to treatment. And she said, if I had breast cancer, you would want me to get help. And I said, the difference is you want to live and I don't. And so when I think about that now, I'm like, God, how selfish that was. But I went to treatment to prove that it wouldn't work. I worked the
Okay.
12 steps to prove that they wouldn't work.
Wow. Okay.
But yeah, but the overachiever that I am, I said, I'm going to work it perfectly. I'll follow every single direction they give me. And I'm going to walk out of here on day 30 and go to the bar and tell them none of that worked.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And so what ended up happening was the girl that came to be a temporary sponsor, she sat down with, this was like on day 10. She sat down with me and I was like, look, I understand step 1, but step 2, there's no way you're going to get me to believe in a higher power. So there's no way this can work for me.
Okay.
And then she brought up a book that she read, and she described a section of the book, and it was she basically recited a storyline of a script that I'd written years ago to prove that there was no God. But she recited it back to me that proved that there was a God. It was almost like my own story being spoken back to me to prove the opposite, you know?
Right.
Does that make sense?
So what I guess the parable came to you before, and you didn't really understand it, and it
With
came
the
to you again.
parable, yeah, the idea was that I was going to prove to the audience
Yeah.
that there is not a God, that we follow all these different religions, and everybody's got their own different religion,
Right.
and we're going to
Sure.
follow these religions down all of these paths in this storyline. It's way complicated, so I can't really go into it, but
No problem. No.
but the idea was at the end you come to the realization there's really no God. She brought this book to me. It was a true story about a lady that died
Okay.
and met Jesus. And Jesus, she asked Jesus, what is the point of all the different religions?
Okay.
And my thing was to bring all of the world's religions out to prove that there is no God. And then Jesus explains to her, all of these religions exist for this and this and this. And that's why there is a God. So basically, it was really kind of a powerful moment. And she said, what's going on with you? Your face just turned white.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, that's a storyline that I had years ago. I basically wrote the script that you just said to me. And she said, oh, you think this is a coincidence, don't you? And I said, yeah, don't you? And she said, why do you think I picked that book, and not just the book, but that part of the book, to say it to you right now? She said, I woke up this morning, I met you for 10 minutes 2 days ago, and I asked God to give me the right words to say to you in this moment.
Wow.
And I was like, wow, I was saying. And she said, I was like, I don't know what's happening here, but I'm going to find out. And so I went back to my room and I started journaling. And I looked at, as I was separating from spirituality, the way my addiction started picking up. And the only way to get me back to spirituality eventually became a crisis that had to happen in order to bring me back.
Yeah.
Because nothing else was going to bring me back.
Wow.
But I still was not sold on Christianity. I was way on I'm going to create a higher power of my own understanding.
Okay.
When I left there, I got a book on Rosicrucianism, Kabbalah. I already had a book called Dharma Punks for some reason, and one other book, but a book on paganism.
Okay.
And
So a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
It sounds like it. Okay.
Yeah, I was like, if I get to build a higher
Love that.
power of my own understanding, it's going to look like the way I want it to.
Sure. And the question, before we move on, did you do the drink? Did it work? Did the rehab actually work?
Yeah,
After 30 days.
They released me 2 days early because they were like, you're ready to go.
Okay.
And you know, the 12th step is carry the message to others, like teach other people.
Yeah. How cool.
And I was like, once that happened for me, I was like, I don't want to do anything else in the world except help other people have the experience I just had.
I
So,
love that. Yep. Hmm.
so I was
I
like
really
on
love that.
fire to go and help people that were lost where I was, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So when I got out, I learned a lot about, every person that I worked with doesn't have the same beliefs I have. So I thought it was my
Right.
responsibility, if I was helping somebody,
Hmm.
to expose them. Like, some people would be like me, they don't believe in anything. Some people would already have a belief system. And I wanted to be familiar with as much as I could so that I could relate to the
Right.
women I worked with, you know?
Okay.
And anyway, I didn't have a job at first. I had been a producer. I was a freelance producer for a while. I didn't want to go back into that, so I just did really what the 12 steps said. Is they said, stick close to him, perform his work well, he will provide what you need. And I was down to my last $65 in my bank account after 9 months.
Hmm.
And a guy at a meeting said, can you build a website? And I
Hmm.
said, I'll have it ready by Monday. And I went and learned how to build a website and built it.
Yep.
And then on Monday, he said, can you do QuickBooks? And I said, I will be able to by next Monday.
Yeah.
And then I started working for him, and it was an electronics recycling company. And then I started working there, and it led me to open my own company. When I started that company, the whole plan was I wanted to get that launched, and then it was going to support me at my 5 year mark of being at that company. I wanted to open a retreat center.
Okay.
So I started that company with some other people in recovery, and then 5 years came. There was one guy that was embezzling. We got rid of him. So then it was just me and two other guys in recovery.
Hmm.
And in 2019, I found out one of them had relapsed and he was embezzling. And then I found out a year later that the other one was working with him. So the last 5 years have been a roller coaster of trials. So
Nice.
I don't know. Anyway, I mean, if you ask, what am I have interest in pretty much everything. Like, you put that skills list up that you had, and I was like,
Hmm.
guys, I know a little bit of all of these things,
Hmm.
but I don't really like. I don't stay on one thing forever. The only thing that I've really focused on intently, methodically, is spirituality.
Mm. Okay.
Yeah.
And so, before we go into that point, because I'd love to explore spirituality more, but can you? How would you describe yourself? Who is Karre Huff in a sentence?
In a sentence, um, I would say a spiritual mystic that wants to change the world.
How amazing! How amazing! I love it. Okay, so why don't we talk about that? Well, okay, actually, you're probably. I'm not sure if I haven't really also told my story as well.
Yeah, I would love to know, because
Yeah.
the way we met was through what you were. I was like, yeah, I love this. It's really what I want to talk about.
Yeah, let's talk about
So
it.
I
So why
want to
don't you
hear
ask
about
me?
your part.
Okay. Um so I think that's another thing that I also wanted to talk to you as well, is because you have opened up in that way. I also am unlocking that potential, and I'm trying to figure out the best way to do that. I have a plethora of I'm sorry. I get distracted easy. I got I have a plethora of like experience in a lot of different realms and a lot of different ways. It's a little crazy to think when I really think about all of the stuff that I've gone through and done. I've done things and I've been through things that people don't necessarily um, feel like there's a way to get out of it. Similar to addiction, right? But I guess I will tell my story to you in a way that gives you an idea of where I've come from and then
Mhm.
where I am today. Does that sound
Yeah,
good?
that sounds great.
Okay, cool. So I guess it all really started when I was younger. I was a kid, and growing up, it was a separated family. So, a separated household. Mom, dad were separated. I was with mom, who was with stepdad in the Navy. Okay. At 19 in the 1990s. And so, as a young kid, traveling around the United States, going all around, seeing what's going on in the Navy, and being very in a strict sort of like household, as well as a lot of other things that could have occurred during that time. So growing up in a household throughout all of your life in a very strict and a rigid way to go into the basically being groomed to go into the military. That's what I was planning on doing all my whole life. Okay, so however, when I sort of grew up into like 18 age, I decided, like, you know what, like, I enjoy my freedom so much more than selling my freedom to the Navy or to the military, where I won't have the same freedoms that I've never really explored, right? And so I think that right there was like maybe a beginning of like a catalyst to explore the unknown, right? Because
Yeah.
when you grow up in a childhood and then your whole childhood, right? Growing up in like a strict household, right? And you have this sort of set of rules, you have this sort of like limitations, and you break that, you get, punished, and a lot of ways, and a lot of ways that could be very much seen unfair, right? And so that's when I became to realize that concept, which I now realize looking back. But after that, I went off to college. I'm here in Orlando, so I went over to UCF. It was actually fun college, great college, a lot of people. I was like, well, I was in Florida. I was going to stay in Florida, so I went to college. Had my time, had my fun, joined a fraternity, did all the college things that everyone says you should do. Eventually, I started figuring out my life. I started figuring out, like, well, I didn't really know what I wanted to do at all, right? At all, at all. I had no idea going into college. I mean, I could relate to a lot of people who I've talked to back then, but like looking back, it's just like, I don't really know what I want to do. And so I was just going off and living life and just, I was a smart guy. I was a smart kid. Being in the Navy, I learned how to, or being in that kind of environment, I had learned I had to get A's or else. I had to get a 100% or else, right? And so that kind of environment was, allowed me to learn the limitations and push past those limitations, right? So it helped build that core belief of like, you can push past like what you think you can do. And so when I push into the unknown of like, going off to college, and I know that I can push past my limiting belief, like
Mhm.
in within my core itself, right? I didn't even know this was all going on, but like looking back where I am today, this is what I'm able to reflect on, right? And so when pushing past those limiting beliefs and going into the unknown, not knowing what in the world is going on, right? That's what I did. And so college became, once I left sort of like on my own, college became a very much a fun time to explore and to meet a lot of people and try a lot of things. It was a great time for me to basically do anything I wanted. I during college, towards the end of my college, I got very involved, very like top. I was in the college business, so I did business. At first, I started studying engineering. I did computer science at first. Then I was like, I met some friends in my fraternity, and I, made some friends with my roommates, and they were all showing me all this business work. And I was like, you know what? That's like the coolest thing ever, because you're studying like international business or international marketing, and then I am building a Mandelbrot set that nobody's gonna use. I'm just building something that nobody's gonna use, and so it's just gonna be a check mark on the box. And I'm busting my ass trying to build this thing while everyone's having a good time. Everyone's doing all these things, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna focus on the thing that like I actually enjoy, which was like
Mm-hmm.
that business, right? And so like that's when I explored that and like made a big shift, right? Changing careers in a college, right? Or change, like this is like junior year of college, like so 2 years in. I went 2 years into computer science. I embraced the suck. I embraced like all the algorithmic proofing and all those ridiculous logistic courses or logic courses and coding courses that I was able to then make a big decision. And so like I made a decision to like change careers, right? Or change like my trajectory even within that period of time. Um, and so that expanded me to the idea of like, well, hey, you can actually change your identity. Like, yes, I wanted to do something different before, and I did something different. But then, you know, I committed to like an engineering path. But then I realized that, you know, you can actually change your identity all around. You can now go down this path of business or this path of a career choice back then. Anyways, I'll speed it up a little bit, but like I went down the business path, and then I very much succeeded in college, right? Thinking that I was gonna do good, do amazing right out of college, right? Because I was a part of like all of the, you know, organizations. I was like building organizations. I was an entrepreneur back in college, just like doing all kinds of things, like going to networking events where the CEOs of all the companies in Orlando were going, and just like getting out there networking. And I was doing internships to really build these kinds of skills that I thought that I needed. Anyways, after that, graduated, didn't really know what was going on. I was like, crap, you know what? Got no job. I got no job prospects. I got nothing like on the horizon. I mean, I know all these people do all these things, but like I'm an entrepreneur. I'm studying entrepreneurship. That's the thing that I chose to go down, like this path of like doing my own thing or solving problems or inventing something or filling a need. And so I was like, nobody's hiring me. So at the time I was like, well, hold up. You know, I had to figure out what to do. And so that's when I started working for myself. That's when I started I think that was back in 2014. Yeah, 2014 is when I graduated. Couldn't get a job at all. And so I just said, you know what? What am I doing today? Like, this is literally the conversation I had with myself. I said, what am I doing today that I can just make money with? Like, I had no job, nothing, just graduated college. I had bills coming, didn't really have anything going on. Like, I was under scholarships and all these sort of things. Like, and so like my intention was like, you know, after college, I got to get a job. But even as a guy like me who was like excelling, had all these connections, like nobody was like sticking their neck out for me there. And so that's when I started to realize like the world in a way, or that sort of world works in a way where it's like it's like an exchange. There's always got to be some sort of exchange.
Absolutely.
And so I'm sure you can resonate with that too, but
yeah, I mean, and what you're saying right now is like that's a spiritual law. I mean, that's an energy exchange. It can't be one-sided. It has to be equal, you know?
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And so like it's fun, it's so fun to sort of explore these, and I've been doing a lot of self-reflection over the last year, and so that's why I'm able to really tell the story in the way that I'm telling it now compared to before, where there's no lessons really to be heard other than like I did these things. It was a great time. It was a very challenging time, right? Like those aren't really lessons that I can learn. So it's only recently that I guess I've been enlightened in a way. I've had an awakening or whatever you want to call it, where I'm able to then take these parables or take these stories that I only would see those small little things, right? And then just learn how to bit like take the lessons from those things. Basically, I call it like this. I use this concept called I call modern day alchemy. Okay, it's
Yeah, I
basic.
like that.
Yeah, so I call it modern day alchemy because in reality of like my worlds of my life that I've been through, I have a period of I take the negative, I take the positive, and I take the indifferent sort of energies of life. All kinds of situations, incidents, whatever it could be. The struggles, that obstacles, the challenges, the trials, all the kinds of things that people could do to me or that affects within my zone of what I am aware of, at least I take that and I turn that all into a positive insight. Basically, learning from every possible instinct or incident of my life. And I do that, and I didn't really know I was doing that when I was younger. But
Yeah.
now with this enlightening that I've been going through, I've been realizing that that's sort of like living in a meditated state or like in a state of constant reflection and a state of constant iteration and constant optimization. And so like like there's a lot of things that are becoming more aware to me of when I'm going down this path. And I will say my path, I can tell you about my enlightening story as well, but my path has happened recently, like this January 2024. I was a completely different person last year. I was a completely different person in Christmas. It's funny that you mentioned Christmas. So like spirituality, and I feel like Christmas it literally is Christ's day. It is the day that Christ was born, right? And so it is an awakening or a rebirth, I believe. At least for me. It was a rebirth for me. And it sounds like that's a unique pattern that for you as well, because your rebirth happened, at least your first rebirth maybe happened towards that time. And so like these things are not coincidental at all. Same way that my spirituality of my faith began to grow and began to experience a level of joy that is thankful and grateful for the sacrifice that Jesus Christ made on the cross for us. Going through that in Easter, like that wasn't, I don't even know when Easter is. Like I'm not that, but like I just know that during that particular period of time, right? These moments of my particular awakening, I'm living it. Every single day I go through, I am going through a period of constant growth and daily spirituality with God. I mean, I will say I believe in God truly and completely, and I can absolutely tell you that I believe that I was in a situation similar to yours, and the way that I would sort of describe that situation in a comparative way to what the way that you've described your situation, where you found spirituality, you found the divine, the powers. It doesn't I'm not, and like I said, I'm not, well, like I will say, I'm not trying to convert anyone to Christ. All I'm doing and really telling my story is to help others see what is possible through my trials. And I've been like, I only told you like the beginning half of my trials so far, and you can imagine like those trials have gotten harder and harder. I mean, I've gone through, I mean, I've gone through so much. And the funniest thing is, like, I'm also going through something now. You talk about embezzlement, you talk about betrayal, you talk about deceit. I'm currently going through a period of that. I've recently been scammed and taken advantage of for $100,000. And so it's a very crucial amount of money for myself and for a lot of people, I believe. And I've leveraged it. And you know what happened is I sinned. I allowed my greed. I allowed my pride. I allowed my ego to get the better of me. I thought, even though my intentions were pure, I recently got married and my intentions were pure. I was like, well, I'm going to do this so that we can buy a house. We can, begin our marriage very, very, very well. Or that my that I want to share this path. I want to share more, and these will provide me resources to do that. But what I realized is I was being deceived, and I was being led into the shadows. And into the shadows, this is how it works, into the darkness. And I believe you will relate. But into the darkness, I've lived there for so long, and I was dancing with the devil at one point. I continue, and I've been brought to the gates of hell, and truly and honestly, like, that is the only point when God has saved my life. And that is the only point when God has revealed himself to me. I've never seen God. I used to be sort of brought to church, brought to Sunday school and all that, and that was helpful. But at the same time, like, I didn't really know what was going on. And going through that sort of strict household, right? You think like there is no like savior. I'm getting like punished all the time for just being alive. Like, there is no savior. Like, that's what I thought. And so going to college, going through all this periods of time is like, well, because I knew that nobody was there to save me, I needed to grow myself and do it myself. I needed to become my own power, right? That's when I led into the entrepreneurial path and building businesses and doing that sort of thing. But like recently, it's been where I guess I will tell you my whole story, and I think you will appreciate. The part of it where I left off was out of college, right? Didn't really have a job, built my own business, started building a business. It wasn't really making many money. It wasn't really doing much. It was a marketing company. I was doing marketing. I was trying to figure out marketing. Anyways, I had a girlfriend at the time, and I guess I knocked her up. So now I'm having a kid, have no job, have nothing, have a girlfriend. And I'm like, well, what in the hell am I going to do? Like, what's going on? Anyways, that was a period of where that was the same amount of rocking that I've received as I currently got, where I got scammed for 100,000, which is a very high level. I probably should have told you the other one first, but it was the high level of a period of like, how to figure my shit out. Like, yeah. It's a fight or flight situation. It's like, and that's the situation. It's unfortunate, I believe, that a lot of people who make bad decisions are really just scared because, right? A lot of times, like, you hear about, fathers will leave, right? And that was the situation where I was confronted with too, right? It's like, what do I do? Like, I can either leave here and just not deal with this, or I could deal with it, right?
Right.
And so I chose the more, I guess, the more noble path. And so I dealt with it. And so I got married to the girl. I got, it was she was my wife for about a year. And then, I sacrificed so much and was able to, get myself jobs, build my own business, like tried a sales job. And I said, hell no. If I'm going to sell for somebody else, I'm going to sell for myself. That's when I built my own company. That's when I built my first company that actually made money. So I was like, it wasn't a lot of money because I didn't really know what a lot of money was. I've never had money. Like, so I was like, well, I did marketing. I did social media marketing back in 2014, 2017. And then I built that company up. Started, I think I was like, first year was like 45,000, second year was 75,000, third year was a little bit more than that, but it was just a lifestyle company. It was just like, I'm building it, I'm doing the work. It's just like a freelance, and I just hire some contractors here and there to help me. Right. Yeah. And so that's like the kind of thing that I was doing while I was figuring out how to be a dad. I was like, at the same time, like, I had to figure out my finances because I had nothing. So I built the company. I had $200 in the bank account. I found out I was having a kid. I spent $50 on business cards. I went out there and hustled. That's it. That was literally it. And so that allowed me to really prove to myself that, hold up, like, I can actually do this. I can actually do whatever that I want to do. I just have to have the right motivations and the right purpose and drive. And so my mission at the time was to build myself up into becoming a capable person in marketing to help organizations and brands like expand to the world internationally or cross borders. All of this is before the internet became so big. Now it's like big right? Yeah. And so like, yeah. But like, this is back when people were like, hey, I pitched people social media and they were like, social media, yeah, right. They're like
I used
Facebook
to say
ads,
people would
hell
be like,
no.
"You don't what? Why don't you? Your company website could do this." And I was like, "Nobody is coming to look for my company for the kind of
That's what they
industry I
told.
was in." I was like,
Yeah,
"Nobody's searching for how to keep your electronics out of a
yeah,
landfill."
yeah.
I was like, "That's not going to come up in any search engine. I'm not interested." So I understand what you mean. Now I remember that time.
That time.
I should have started back then and listened to people like you.
Well, I mean that's just that's the limiting belief. That's the current sort of state where a lot of people are today, where they're afraid of change, or they don't
Yeah.
necessarily think change will ever happen. They don't
Oh,
necessarily.
it is happening.
Absolutely. Every single second I cherish, and even today, even right now, I am very thankful that you hopped on the call. It's actually it's a good testament of your character and a good testament of who you are. And I really appreciate that because this is our first time chatting ever, you
Yeah.
know? And you're in Texas, I'm in Florida, right? You have your
Yeah.
own story, I have my own story. We have our own struggles. I mean, so like just really and honestly, like that right there is just like a testament itself of just like cherish every moment. And really, because every moment is fleeting, like you can lose the next moment, or the
Right.
next moment will never be what you ever wanted it to be, or it could be exactly what you wanted it to be, the good, the bad, or the indifferent, right? That's who I am. So I'm just a guy who has learned to live life and embrace life in every possible way, the good, the bad, and the indifferent. And you know what has come out of that is I've been able to build my character and my mindset up enough over those periods of times and the many trials that I've had. um I mean, I've been let go. I've had to like transition all around, but over the many trials that I've had, I'm just a person who has built up resilience over a lot of obstacles and also has learned to love the world. And so, where
Yeah.
there's so much hate in this world, which I am not even aware of, I mean, I am aware of, but like I've been so clouded in my journey, like because I've been relying on myself, like to get myself through life, right? Having kid now I have, I mean, I'm making good money, I'm doing a lot of good things, right? But like, why would somebody? And I'm also, I'll tell you about my enlightening story if you're
Yeah.
interested.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is recent. This is like as of last year. So I think I got into a point where, I was going to right. I was the guy. I was the military kid. Go to college. Did everything you were supposed to do. Make good money. I lived the life that everyone like. I'm Filipino, so like Asian, a little bit heritage. Like everyone, sort of expects a little bit more, but at the same time, like I did a lot of things that a lot of people would consider successful, right? At least at my level. I mean, I know that you've ran multiple, large companies and all that, but I'm talking from like a.
No, that's really. I mean, you've done you've broken through a lot of your own limiting beliefs, and the businesses are just that doesn't have. I mean, that is not something that I really consider big accomplishment as opposed to like what you're about to talk about. Like the changes in character and things are the what is really important, because when that happens, businesses and things like that, you seem to draw it to you
Mhm.
more readily. But it's really those moments when you change as a human,
Yes.
because like what you would consider, because you are Christian, you would be like, Paul, the old
Newly
Paul has to
found
die
Christian.
every day,
Newly found, I will say. I did not believe. I was actually potentially the opposite. Like I was newly found. I was saved.
Oh, okay,
I was
gotcha.
saved because
but
if
but
go
that's
ahead.
like but that's like in the Bible, it's like Paul has to die every day. He's like, the
Yeah.
person that I want to be,
Yeah.
in 6 months, I cannot be that person. Like the only way that I can be that person is if I acquire the character that person has all
Right.
here. And
Mhm.
then I get there like almost like lightning. That's
Yeah.
why you want to take on those characteristics and those behaviors as
Right.
soon as possible and retrain your subconscious. But, that's something that's what they're talking about in the Bible when
Yeah.
Paul has to die every day. So it just depends on whatever your belief, that whatever you practice, there's a story that mimics this, and that's exactly
Absolutely.
what has to happen. We have to be reborn over
Yes.
and over and over.
Yes. So like your story and my story are very similar. I mean, you told me a little bit about your awakening to spirituality. I think I would describe it as we both went into the abyss and we came out saved.
Yep.
That's how I would put it in a couple words. Would you
Yep.
agree with that?
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. There's a book I have called Witness to the Fire, and you go into the abyss, and then you have some trials. You come out. Then there's a brief period of enlightenment, and then you go through a dark night of the soul. Because after a period of enlightenment,
Yes.
then you really go through a
The dark
big,
period. Yes.
yeah,
You go into the dark.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
It's very, and so it really helps when like the reason why I really started like posting is really to help. Like I'm just so thankful, right? Like I mean the fact that I'm talking with you. I mean I'm just a guy. I'm just a guy. I'm just a guy who's lived life and has. I mean I just have a story to tell, and that's truly and honestly I've been called to tell my story because
right,
I have a story of resilience and compassion. I can easily be a hateful person. I can easily be a dark person, but I love the world and I love our current situation where we're talking and conversing across the US, right? And we can converse and talk to everybody who's online. And so I just want to help people understand how to build that resilience and how to foster that sort of like love for the world. And I will say honestly, like my strength comes from God. Like that's the only thing that has keeping me here today. I'm living a third life, I will say. So I mean, he keeps saving me. and I feel like I have to be able to tell these stories because my stories can be helpful for people who are like in the dark, because I'm a kid who doesn't know anything. I don't know the world. I wasn't really raised right in a way that I was taught, by my father to go out there into the world. And yes, I was taught by my father. My father is an amazing person, but I wasn't really taught to how to live life. I was only taught how to live life obediently, right?
yeah,
And so I was not taught how to live life. And so when you travel through life and you will encounter trials, and you could, right, be good enough and make yourself good enough to overcome that trial by yourself easily. I mean, maybe not easily, but you could definitely overcome that trial within your own like will, your own like I'm just gonna hammer through it. Those are the brute force, right? You can brute force cold call your way up to success, right? But
yeah,
then there will always be a bigger trial. There will
yeah,
always be a stronger or a bigger obstacle for you to overcome. And so in order to do that, like I just see it so much through my own story. Like the more I reflect on it, like there's so many obstacles that have been put on my path, and I've been able to walk over them over by myself too. And now I walk over that with God by my side. And so with that alone, right, I built up just this January to today, I think it's May, 5 months, just within a short period of time. Like I've had a situation where like I got taken for advantage of. I betrayed, like a lot of like the embezzlement story, right? It's very much a betrayal. Like you trusted this person, you trusted these people, or this particular, you believed that this person could be good, and that's all you saw, right? And so I mean, my gut was telling me no, but then I was being I was being whispered in the ear by the devil, absolutely, because he was like, well, God wants you to be brave. God wants you to take the courageous route, which is absolutely right. The characteristics of the people, the nobles, and the people that we some people want to strive for, right? So like they use the word of God against us. And so it's very hard as a Christian, as a newly found Christian, to know that that's there. And so what I plan on doing, I mean, the reason why I'm telling you this is really to bring to light this sneak attack, this particular area of deceit. And I want to bring it to light so that the darkness cannot hide. And I want to help as many people and shine so large for enough people to be able to find within themselves their light and then shine even brighter together. Because I believe that there is no garden of one plant. There is a garden. Every single garden that I've seen has multiple plants. They have multiple plants to build a foundation of roots to outweigh the weather, to outweigh all of the things that life will throw at you. That's a community. That's friends. That's family. That's support, right? That's when they tell you, do you have a support system, right? Like they tell you that, right? And so like that's what that is. And so in the garden of God, we are those plants. And so when I see that what I've been doing is trying to build myself by myself, like I needed to correct that. And so now that's where I share. Now this is why I try to help and I try to like grow together, because honestly, like we can all rise and find peace within our life. We can defeat anxiety. We can defeat depression. We can defeat anger. We can defeat familial fucking societal norms and societal pressures and family pressures. We can defeat all of it. We can defeat it all with the word of God. And I am just a guy that has benefited from this, who was a complete disbeliever. Complete. I was like, I'm an atheist. I don't like God. God is not real. Like I was a complete disbeliever. But I've given my life to the Lord. And truly and honestly, at the gates of hell, the reason why I say that is I was dancing with the devil and he was bringing me closer to hell. Eventually I got to the gates of hell, where my soul was up for bargain. My soul was being bargained for. And there were two people there. The devil, and he offered me lust. He offered me greed. He offered me desire. He offered me all of the things, all the worldly riches that I could want. And then there was God. You know what he offered me? The only thing he offered me was love. And I chose love. And I said, if I die today, I will die. But I believe in you, Lord. But if you will me to die today, I die. And I was willing and ready to give my life. And I chose the Lord. That is the moment that he raised me completely out of the depths of hell. And I was saved. 110%. That is my spirituality awakening. And I didn't know what in the world was going on. This was all during Christmas as well, this last Christmas. Yeah. I didn't know what was going on. I told my mom, I told my family, I told everybody, I am losing my mind. I have lost it. There is no way I can go on any longer. I'm losing it. My mind is lost. I couldn't help it. I couldn't think straight. I couldn't do anything. And that's when my soul was up for bargain. And I had the blessing and the choice to choose. That is the gift that Jesus Christ has provided us, the ability to be saved, the salvation. But it is up to us to walk that path, to bear that cross, and really help ourselves, because he's there. The love is there. It's just... And that's why I think you say frequency. You feel the love. You feel the spirituality. I have just been able to reflect upon it a little bit. And this is my story that I tell.
Yeah. And that's one of the things, like, I figured that, there are a lot of addicts in the world. And I've helped, I don't even know how many. I used to take a meeting to a treatment center once a week for 5 years. So I've sponsored, I can't even count how many women. I usually carry between 15 and 20 sponsees, and because people relapse, new people come in. And the one thing that I know for sure is that anything that's ever happened to me in my life has been so that I can share it to help another person, period. everything that I have learned is for the purpose of sharing. That's like the
Yes.
principles of Kabbalah. It literally means to receive. I receive for the purpose of sharing. Period. And what I learned right away about the 12 steps is that they line up with every single spiritual, not religion, but the spiritual practices from the
Yes.
beginning of those, those esoteric texts. And I was like, look, I have to, understand, like, I can reach people before they become an addict. There are, because it's all the same things. These people in the past had the same types of
Wisdom.
issues.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
had the same issues, and they used these principles to move through and grow. And
Yes.
I'm like, I have the reason I have a story is because it gives me credibility. I can show you what I did in order to become the person that you see today. You
Yeah.
damn sure weren't going to come over to me when I was passed out in the middle of the downtown street in Dallas with my face in a gutter. Are
Mhm.
not going to come to me and ask me, how'd you get there?
Right.
All. But I went through that so that I can walk to the person that's in
Right.
the gutter and say, I
Yes.
can help you. Let's go.
Yes. Yes. It allows you to
That's
relate.
that's all I'm doing. That's the same reason I got on when I was going out of this business. I was like, look, I didn't have to close this company. I could have kept it open easily. Not easily, but I could have said, okay, I'm going to double down. I'm going to do this. I'm going to go after that contract. I'm going to do this and this. And then I was like, am I going to put off the retreat center that I wanted, that I've put off a year at a time? Now it's been 5 years. Now it's been 6 years since the 5 year mark. And I'm like, I don't have lots of extra years left. I don't want to keep doing something that doesn't feed my spirit. I want to do something that helps people. So I thought I'll start a private practice because I take some classes on integrative medicine. I'm trying to get my doctorate right now,
Okay.
but I was like, everything that I do already is the same thing a therapist does. And I have some coaching certificates, but
Yeah.
nothing has ever changed my life more than working with the sponsor, because the sponsor will like be, you are in self delusion right now. This is what you don't see. And a
Right.
therapist is like, how's your day? And a
Mm-hmm.
sponsor's like, you can't see that you're in a shit storm because you're in the middle of it. And here's what you don't
Yes.
see. And where
Mm-hmm.
are you setting the ball rolling, Carrie? Where did you make a decision based on your ego that put you here? That's the kind of stuff that people don't do in therapy. And so I was like, I can open a practice and do 10 to 20 people a week and make half the amount of money, though, that I used to make. And then I was like, or I could do social media. And I've had an terrible affinity. I was like, I do not, under any circumstances, want to do social media.
Okay.
And then I was like, but that's where the reach is. That's where I can find the most people.
Yes.
That's where I can put programs together and work with help. I can help 1,000 people in a week as opposed to 20.
Right.
And then I was going, that's really interesting because at the school that I'm in, I found in 2014. I majored in radio, TV, film. I operated a computer electronics recycling and refurbishing company. I can build a computer from the ground up. I can mine crypto. I
Yeah.
can edit. I was like, it's like my whole skill set can come together to help these people. Like everything is, it's almost, you can see the puppet strings of God
Yeah.
organizing things for me my whole life for this moment to say, now pull it all together and use it to help everybody that you can.
Yes.
And now you can do a big reach
Yes.
because you have the internet.
Yes.
So that's kind of, your story is a lot like mine.
That's what I'm feeling. It's exactly. And the funniest thing is, I believe that a lot of people are being awoke or enlightened or awakened or whatever you want to call it. I've noticed that there's a period of time, like this year alone, I believe this year is a really great year. It's the year of the wood dragon. It's the year of opportunity. It's the year of aspiration. It's a year of a revival for, I think, a lot of people. And it sounds like you and I are also along a similar journey and have a lot of similarities, because that's exactly what, in a way, I've done as well. Like before, I mean, let me ask you first, but how long have you been posting for? Or how long have you been on social media?
I did my first post on March 13th.
There you go. Okay, so this year, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so like a month ago or 2 months ago, yeah. So
Yeah,
like this year.
about 45 days ago, yeah.
There you go. So I've also, as we started around the same time. I mean, I started my enlightenment in January, and then I started posting around March time, around Easter time. That's when I started really posting heavily. But it sounds like we can really learn a lot from each other, because we're in a similar point where we've grown to a point where we have a lot to tell.
Yeah.
Right. And we have a lot to share. And so the reason why I wanted to do this chat with you, it's live and genuine, is because it really allows those stories to be shared in a way that's as genuine as possible. Right? It's just like a conversation. And I think that right there is authenticity. And so like, if we can show that, like if we can show authenticity, we can show like, hey, I've never met you, Karre. You've never met me, but we are, spiritual people. We are people who are here to do good rather than, let's just call it, we're in the good fight versus the fight for evil, right? We want to help, right? We want to help versus we want to break down and tear down, right? The good and the bad, the yin and the yang of it all, right? You could be said in a lot of ways, but we're on the same side. And it sounds like we can really like build something together, or our community is alone and just communities all around. We can all grow together and help.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we all should be lifting everybody. I gotta say, I found a teacher in 2021, because once you grow a little bit, then you have a stagnation period, and then you find a new teacher and you go deeper into your practice.
Yes.
And I found a teacher that I loved, and I went to Egypt to do to the pyramids with him. He was doing spiritual work, but it was along the lines of he was mimicking the initiation that people used to go through in ancient times at the pyramids, and so we were there for that. And I just remember him saying back then, he was like, we are preparing now for from now until the end of 2022, for the period between 2024 and 2026, when the whole planet is going to be going through a shift. And we're all feeling it, and it's coming up everywhere, because we are in that phase.
Wow.
And it's not just, all of us humans. I mean, we come from, I believe, we come from the universe. We're part of it. And so we can't escape the fact that we're going through it with the rest of the solar system, of the galaxy, of the universe. We are all moving into this big expansion phase right now. And so that's why it's everywhere you look. It's so exciting. And I'm like, finally, yes. And with this amount of momentum for spirituality, that's why we're being met with a lot of darkness too.
Yes, very much.
That's precisely why. And
very much.
It has to be there. Otherwise, we wouldn't be creating this much momentum. If everything was okay, we'd be kind of just sitting around twiddling our thumbs going, I guess I'll play a video game. But there's some scary stuff happening with different things right now on the planet. And so now we're coming together finally.
I love that. That is so cool. And so Egypt, when you went to Egypt, they... Wait, what happened in 2020? What was
this guy's name is Matthias De Stefano.
Okay.
He has a show called Initiation on Gaia Network, and he remembers his past lives when he was around 12 years old.
Okay.
Like when he grew up as a child.
Yeah.
he had what he they were imaginary friends, but he thought everybody had them. But when he was around 12,
Wow.
they said, "We're going to go away and you're not going to see us anymore.
Wow.
But this, you're going to start remembering your past lives." And he was sitting in like a science class or something, and he had a memory of being at the pyramid with his husband. He was in a woman's body, and he was like, it freaked. He was freaking out. He had a bad headache, and he was having them all the time with these memories as a child. But basically, he on Gaia TV, he has these. He explains scientifically is what's going on. There was a part of his brain that usually is cut off when we are at around ages between 3 and 7. That part of the brain usually goes dormant, and his stayed awake, and that's why he has access to these memories. But it all depends on what you
Wow.
believe in. But he goes through on that series called Initiation. He starts at the first vibration of
Yeah.
the universe. He
Yeah.
starts with the vibration, and then he carries it all the way to where we are now. But he's like, what he was doing, he was basically saying the planet has had so much turmoil that the nodes on the planet, the North Pole and the South Pole, like there's no realignment. And he was there bringing as many people as he could to align the energy to basically just be in coherence with the planet. Like basically, he
Yeah.
took people into the pyramids for 3 nights in a row where they did chanting and
Wow.
visualization. I wasn't in that group. I was in the white group.
How old was
So
he now? Like at this time?
I think he's like 32.
Okay, around the. Oh wow. Okay, that's my
Yeah.
age. I'm 32 right now. Okay, wow.
Yeah, you
Cool.
you should look him up. He's on. Just watch something of his
Sure.
and be open minded. You'll
I love
see
this.
like
Yeah, yeah. Because I'm
when
not a Christian. I mean, before I became like a Christian and found Christ,
Mhm.
like I went through the awakening. I went through my enlightenment. I believe God saved me. I didn't know what God. I didn't know who. Right.
Right.
I explored it all. I looked at Buddhism. I looked at
Yeah.
I looked at all kinds of like different kinds of texts, I mean that's where I found Stoicism, and I find Stoicism itself as a
Yeah.
great principle to live life, because life is struggle. It's a great principles to like be able to put on top of guardrails of life, and it will help us like lessen the burden of life if we're going on it alone. But then equally enough, Christ has lessened the burden of life only through him. So I don't need to use the Stoic practices as much, but at the same time, those are very helpful. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, no, so it sounds like I'm so sorry. I took us off on a tangent. We were talking about Mateus.
No, that's okay.
But
No. It's great. I like the tangent. I mean, I think you're gonna like this guy. I just think the way that he speaks,
Mhm.
he's telling you a story like it happened 10 minutes ago, and
Yeah.
it's so in depth.
Love
Like I
this.
had, it's like an 18-minute video, and I have to rewind it like 50 times because I'm like, for 60 seconds worth of information, I'm like, what did he just say? Because it just rolls off of his mouth like,
Yeah.
there was the vibration, and it was like, oh, and he does the sound, and then he
Wow.
says, and then this formation came from the particles and all the way through to current day. He takes you over these 4-year period of these 20-minute segments. But
Wow.
he's a yeah.
What did he say
And
about
he,
now?
huh?
2024. What did he say about 2024?
I just actually heard him on a recent, he was talking about the eclipse season coming, and he was talking
Oh
about
my
a vision
gosh.
that he had about,
Mm-hmm.
he wasn't in Austin when he was doing this interview, but he said he was talking about the Taurus moon or something. But he basically said that is going to be positioned over Austin, Texas,
Wow.
basically saying there was going to be a lot of energy and struggle, and the
Yes.
center point was going. And I was like, that's just great, right
Oh
where I
my
am.
gosh.
But
Wow.
he's around. He's always organizing. Right now, he's organizing in some type of an event, but it's all for connecting the planet and energy, and
Yes.
he's just a good
Love
dude
that.
that wants to help people. Same
Yes.
as us.
Yeah, I love
He's
that.
sharing, and he's like, you don't have to believe me. You don't even have
Yeah.
to listen. I'm just if and what he says at the very beginning of everything that I think is just brilliant. He says, "What I'm going to tell you is not the truth." He says, "It is a part of the truth that I
Yes.
remember." And I'm like, that is great. Because at first you're like, what? And then you go, oh. He's like, yeah. He said, it's so big, I can't possibly remember everything. But I'm
Yeah.
going to tell you the pieces that I do have access to.
How cool. I love
And
that.
that will make your mind go, because it was really what I needed after, a lot of the struggles. That embezzlement that happened at my company between those two guys, it was about $500,000.
Yeah.
And
It's enough
yeah,
to hurt. Let's put it that way. It's enough to sting, right?
yeah, it stung, and it was like, but the thing is, one of them had like, he didn't have a lot of skill sets. He came in because he put the first 30 grand in the company, so
Okay.
he didn't have a lot of skill sets, and he didn't really necessarily do a lot of work there. But
Mm,
we were stuck with him.
got it.
And I did a ton of work. Like, I was the one working 60 to 80 hours a week, and he was taking 3 months off at a time
Yeah.
for different. And I didn't care because it was easier with him not there. But to have him do that after I did not take any extra money for all the extra effort that I put in and over the years, it really stung.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you this piece to tell you that 3 weeks ago, I met with him to forgive him.
How did that go?
It went well. It went really well.
Good.
I mean, well enough that we are starting to talk weekly again. But it's like I don't have the luxury not to forgive people. Even
Correct.
when we were partying and I was mad, we hugged each other. He was like, I love you, Carrie. I mean, I was in his wedding and his sister wasn't. That's how close we were.
Mm,
And we didn't talk for 2.5 years. But when we separated, I said, I love you too, but there's going to have to be a healing period
yeah.
because right now I'm wounded.
Right.
And he was too, because I took my friendship away.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we finally sat down together, I mean, we knew that both of us would come together again at a certain time because we both work a spiritual program.
Okay.
And so I reached out to him because I didn't think he would reach out to me ever. And I said, are you open to have a healing conversation? And he said, I will be soon. And then we met, and it was that's just, you'll see that in every spiritual practice. But I firmly believe that forgiving people is an absolute must if you want to be happy. You cannot
Yes.
carry stuff like that around. You cannot carry resentment in your heart ever. Even if you think it's dormant and it doesn't matter, you got to clean that stuff up,
Yes.
you know?
Absolutely. Letting
Yeah.
go is one of those concepts, and that's letting go of those emotions and letting go of like all the negative within, the anxieties. And
Yeah.
a lot of different religions will tell you to do different things. And that's why I don't necessarily follow a religion. I don't even go to church. I am
Yeah.
just I'm connected in my own way to God and to Jesus Christ within my own personal story. And so
I'm really excited to see like that we met, and that
yeah,
I'm going to get to be a part of this journey that you're on. It's so amazing to watch people go through this process. It's the coolest thing in the world.
that's why I'm doing this as well. Because I mean I'm so early in my journey. So early. And I'm doing it for the person who needs to hear this, because if I was, which I was, in that situation where I had nothing, $200 in the bank account, having a kid, no job, nothing, like, like have no horizon of like hope and I have no guiding path, I don't even know what I want to do with my life, right? What is it something that I would be then, like, be able to benefit from? And the thing that is the journey of the struggle, the journey of the current situation. And so that's the way that I found, looking back at that particular scenario, of like, what is it something who could have told, or what is somebody what is something that someone could have told me or I could have watched back then to then improve my life. And that was watching someone do that. And so that's why I began to share, because I know I'm not like where I want, where I'm going to be. And that's a good thing, because where I'm going to be is much further than where I am today.
Yeah.
And so I want to show that, like, God is with me and I'm able to do all of this and go through life and go through these kinds of struggles, that it is possible to leave those anxieties, to leave those depressions, to leave that particular emotional states, to let all these things go. And so it's a very much an interesting time for the world, because the solar eclipse, right, happened this year. And you know what the funniest thing is? And it's not funny. It's like, it's more coincidental. It's more really just like the universe. This is the attack, right? That was the moment that I got scammed. That was the exact moment when it was over the solar eclipse. That was the moment.
Yeah.
That was the moment where the light of the world was put into darkness. The devil was at his strongest point. The evil forces were there. That was the moment. And so I don't blame myself for being deceived. I don't blame myself for anything, because it is all a part of the lesson. Because that is the moment where I began to understand how to humble myself, how to let go of my pride. I gave my will to God, but my pride was still my own. I don't need to be proud. I don't need to have an ego. I don't need anything. All I need is God to guide me and to provide the strength so that I can do his will here on earth.
That's exactly right. And you gotta, like, what I had to do in recovery, and what I was like, if every person did this, there would be, like, this is stuff that should be taught in elementary all the way through life, is what we should be doing and what the ancient people did do. But
that's ancestors.
What I learned how to do was the very first thing, that once we figure out that our addiction is only a symptom, it says the bottles were only a symptom.
Right.
The problem
Correct.
was the hole inside of me.
Correct.
And they call it a God-shaped hole. It's a spiritual malady.
Yeah.
I had to go through the destruction of ego.
Yeah.
And they have a process of breaking you. If you actually work it, a lot of people don't even ever work the steps. They just go to meetings, which is never could have worked for me. But there is a destruction of ego that you continue to have whenever your ego starts to rebuild, because it will. You have your sponsor to go, your ego is showing up here and here. And not that it's bad. You need your ego, but you need it in balance. You know, like, if, you know, God's will and Carrie's will, when it goes like this, when it starts going too much to Carrie, I've got to get my sponsors like, whoa, he's up, you know?
Yep.
Because we will look at things. There's a process of it. And what you were just talking about was that situation that opened up, and these negative entities or negative energy, I would say, came to you. What was needed in your life, something needed to shift in your life, and the way that you weren't getting the message properly. Correct. And it needed to happen strong enough, because whatever is in store for you, you needed to have this transformation more quickly. So they made it sting harder.
For sure.
So you could get there quicker.
You are right. exactly on the point. That's exactly what happened.
Yeah, that's how it works. I mean, it's like there's a story where it's like God is sitting in the car next to you. This is from Kabbalah, and you're driving down the road full of potholes. And God is over here going, there's going to be a pothole up here on your left. So you need to curve to the right just a little bit. And you're like, I got it. And you will hit, like, I have to hit every
Right.
single
Mm-hmm.
pothole until the damn car breaks down.
Right. Then
And
you'll
then it's like,
listen.
I've been tapping on your shoulder the whole time, telling you
Right.
what to do. And
Yes.
you're like,
Yes.
no, I got this.
You,
And
you know, Carrot, you're exactly right. And that's super cool that you can relate so well with the meaning of like what is my story. And so that's what I guess that's what it means to be on the same frequency, because I could tell that story and like people would not necessarily take it the way you did. And so I love that.
yeah.
And let me put it this way. One more thing with I think this will help you like to understand how I live my life in the way that you've been speaking. You've been telling me that a sponsor is someone that will help you and someone who will guide you and say you effed up, you did really bad, you like what are you doing down there? What are you doing again? Right? Again? They're there to help you like do those things.
Yeah.
So, let me put it in this way how I live my life in those terms. My sponsor for life is God.
Hmm.
And that's the way he is with me. That's my relationship with God. I don't want to have to do all this. I was living a cozy life. I was living just I'm a remote worker. I had a lot of money. I was doing well. Like it was just chilling and then just boom, all of it taken away. I was like, what
Yeah.
but like at the same time like I've been called to do more even before that particular incident, right? It's just like that was the period of awakening. Like that was the period of like losing my mind, don't want to do this. I am despising doing this, but I'm being forced to do it. So like you told me like the story of the person who told you the story, who prayed to God to give her the words
You
to give to you.
words, yeah.
Right. I during that period of like immediate growth and my beginning of my like this year, it's been very much where I have had the words and I don't even know what I'm saying. I'm just God it was speaking through me or I was being inspired.
Mm.
I was being inspired. That's what the words that I learned to use. He's been teaching me. I've been going through a period of like, I call it like a boot camp of sorts. Like, just like learning to live life down the path of righteousness, of like where my path is. Like, and everyone's path is different. Everyone's called to do different things in the kingdom of God. But like, I think just going down the path and like thinking that you can do it differently and say like, oh yeah, no, I'll get there. Like it's like you and me started are at the same place. Let's say we go to the park or coffee shop and we're like, okay, we're gonna meet at this restaurant. I'll meet you there. Instead of us following each other or instead of us following the person who knows to get there, one of us was, or I could be like, well, you know what? I'm just gonna go down this way, down that way. I know the shortcut. I'm gonna get there eventually, but then like I can do it my own way, and then just boom, flat tire, destroyed, right? Like car got stolen, right? Oh crap. Now what do I do? Right? That's
Yeah.
where the humility, that's where the humbling, that's where the pride gets destroyed. That's where the ego gets destroyed. When you put all in, when you go all in on something for you that you think alone with and then the devil is whispering in your ear, the evil forces are whispering in your ear and manipulating you by using the word of God against you, it's a very hard time. And that's when it was strongest in the solar eclipse. I've never
Mm.
felt it that strong, and that's why I faltered. And I at the same time it needed to happen. God let this happen to me because I deviated from the path. I deviated from what I'm doing. And so your situation too, I believe. You said you deviated from social media. You deviated from the path that you felt called to do, and then you sort of got smacked back into back into where you are today, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I think.
Well, I will tell you one thing that you said right at the beginning of this, that when you started sharing this
Yeah.
piece, it was that like God is your sponsor, and
Yes.
it's fascinating because I mean, I don't work with my sponsor as closely as I used to
Right.
because I don't need because the sponsor's role,
Mm-hmm.
that the only role they have is to get you connected to the power, to whatever your power is.
Okay.
And the true sponsor will tell you that early on while you're getting connected, maybe 3 to 5 years, you rely on your sponsor a lot because you drift and you don't know what's God's will and what's my will. They look damn similar sometimes.
Right.
You're like, I don't
Yeah,
know.
exactly.
And you need a perspective
Yes.
until one day you go, it's clicking. I got it. And whenever that started happening for me, like when I decided to open this company, my sponsor was like, you didn't even call me. And I was like, because you're
Correct.
not the power. I talked to God and I got the green light go. But you're exactly right. The idea is God is the sponsor. It's like people in India that have gurus.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
They have them for those moments where
Right.
their
They're
growth
faltering.
stagnates and
Mm-hmm.
they need to go to the next level. But they have a guru, and for the most part, they end up becoming gurus themselves. But
Right.
it's kind of the same principle, and I don't really want to. I don't want to go too far into like
Yeah.
everything being in recovery field because I don't want myself to be limited to just people that, even though I think everyone has an addiction of some sort,
Yeah.
because it's the thing we participate in addictions a lot in order to cope with things, like
Correct.
scrolling. That's a bad addiction.
Correct. I mean, we're
And
meant we're sinners at heart, so we will falter.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know, it will happen. We're not perfect, and that's
that's
just
right.
that's who we are.
That's right. My goal is to reach people before they ever have to go into the addiction.
Correct. I love that. I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
So I know we've been on the call for, I mean, almost 90 minutes now. Is there,
Wow.
why don't I don't want to take up too much of your time. I don't want to take up your whole night kind of thing. But
Yeah.
what? Let me ask you a couple more questions.
Okay.
One second.
I don't have anything else planned. I mean, I have to feed my animals in about an hour and a half, but
Okay.
I'm okay for now.
Talk to me more about your goal with your X channel, because I believe we've started around the same time. I'm still figuring it out myself, honestly. Like, and I
Yeah.
mean, I feel like you're at a similar point, but why don't you tell me more about like what you're striving to do, at least in
Yeah,
the current point?
you're right on track because originally what I was going to do with YouTube,
Hmm.
I was like, I'm just going to, because I started probably in October deciding I was going to do a YouTube channel, and what it was going to be about was me closing my company and just starting my life completely over at age 50.
Hmm.
So, because a lot of people are getting ready to retire
Hmm.
or already are, and I'm starting from ground zero. And I was like, I'm going to document this whole process
Yeah.
on YouTube.
Okay.
And I was like, and the first thing I'm going to do, is build myself a website. So I'm going to record myself building the website,
Hmm.
and then I had to go break out equipment that I had from long ago. And then I had to order new equipment because
Sure.
that crap is out of date. And I set up a room for the studio, and, I can build a website. Fine. I've built and maintained lots, but building a website for myself and trying to
Hmm.
build I want to be like a learning
Yeah.
the learning system integrated. And if I was gonna it what ended up happening was I was going down rabbit holes. I was like, this is
Right.
not viable. And then I was like, well, I'm just going to do it live. I'm going to say, look, I'm going to walk you through, this is how we're going to go and get your domain name, and I'm basically
Okay. Yeah.
teach them how to register everything,
Yep.
and then get a WordPress template and take them through it day by day. And I thought that I don't I know it, but it's not something that I should be teaching. And I was like, I'm going to spend all of my energy first trying to put this together and then relay it to them. So I kind of nixed that idea because ideally I wanted to get to my website is going to be about what we're talking about now, helping people and building a community for people to pretty much create the life they want to live. If we're like
Correct.
to, that's like a catch-all phrase, but so I was like, well, scratch YouTube for now.
Okay.
And but this happened over months. I mean, if you could see the amount of content that I have written for, because I was like, okay, I have multiple domain names. I have two websites going because I was like, okay, I'm gonna have one over here for recovery people only, and then I'm gonna have something over here for, and it just became total clutter. And I was like, this is not working. So I was like, I don't even have a following anyway. So let's
Right.
start with something like Twitter, and then I can hopefully, this is when I put into practice putting out into the universe by writing things down and
Mm-hmm.
having and visualizing and doing
Yeah.
all the things that I practice or I preach.
Yeah.
I was like, I know that it'll come to me a little at a time because this evolved just so gradually and organic.
Yes.
So what I want to do is build some. I've already started working on an offering, but it's like some meditations and affirmations. And the thing is, anybody can put something like this together. In fact, I've taken a lot of these offers to see what people are doing, and I've looked at a lot of,
Oh yeah.
yeah, and
How's
I
that?
see it, and I'm like, everything really depends on if the person is really going to take action or not, you
Hmm.
know. And that's where the one-on-one contact would come into play. And so I want to build some digital courses, maybe a 2 hour course, maybe a 6 hour, but more so a community with content and very, very, very affordable community. And then I want to work with people that are struggling to get there. Like there are people right now on X that are trying to get launch their career
Mm-hmm.
and can't see why they're not taking off, and they're putting all of this effort in and spinning their wheels. And I think that I have good ideas about how to shift them out of that, you know.
Yeah.
And I want to be one-on-one coaching, maybe for, maybe it's going to be quarterly or biannually. And then I definitely want to have, we have some land in just east of Austin with a pond,
Okay.
18 acres, and we were going to put some yurts up. And like I want to host like a spiritual retreat, like 10
Wow.
to 14 days
How
of
cool.
deep learning, eating organic foods that we grow out there, and just learning about spirituality and how to manifest the life of your dreams, ideally. And that's a loose framework because I'm really waiting for guidance as well. But I have been building. Um, it's like a Notion template with
Yeah.
a list of Spotify meditations that my
How
partner and I
cool.
recorded, and then some journal prompts, some everybody's affirmations need to look different. And I think that because everybody's not going to have the same goals. And
Right.
I saw somebody like right when I first started X, and I saw somebody had um, written down their affirmations. I will blah blah blah, and I was like, that it's great that you're doing that, but you really want to phrase it as I am, because if you're telling your
Yes.
subconscious
Correct.
that I
Correct.
will, it's always going to be thinking that you'll get to it.
Wow.
But if you tell it I am doing it, then it thinks you're already there. So it shifts your frequency. That's how energy works.
You're exactly right. That is so cool because I believe you will maybe resonate with this, but I mean, for all those that are listening could also benefit. But I believe that you're exactly right. to a point where you have to like really believe you're that thing. You are
Yes.
those characteristics. You are that particular person. And that person has to be very clear in your mind so that you
Yes.
can be that. And so those were the beginning points of like me actually finding that like that, and that's why I asked you in the beginning, like, who is Carrie Huff?
You know what? You know what you said? I don't mean to interrupt, but
Yeah.
you reminded me of something that I wanted to mention before, because at
Yeah.
the beginning you said I always had the mental peace to move through it. Like
Yeah.
I just didn't see, I grew up with my mom had me when she was 16.
Okay.
My dad was abusive. He tried to kill her in front of me
Oh,
multiple
no.
times. He kidnapped me as a child. We
Oh,
were on, I mean, I ended
no.
up living in
Yeah.
Dallas because we were on the run from him. My whole early childhood was utter chaos.
I can imagine.
But I thank God for my young mother, whose parents both died when she was young. But I mean, it
Oh,
was just
no.
us forever. And but she had the wherewithal to really tell me that I could do or be anything.
Correct.
And I believed it completely.
Yes.
So whenever something happens or that is an obstacle, I just doesn't enter my mind that I can't do it. I'm like, well, totally we can do that. Like when the guy said, "Can you build a website?" I was like, "Yes."
Right.
Everybody can, but will everybody? Because
Correct.
I believe everybody really could, but they tell themselves they can't. But
Love that.
you can. You really can. If you believe you can't, then you can. It's that simple.
Exactly. And that's such a good story. That's a really good story because that I also have my mother, she also told me similar. Like, you can do anything you want to do. Now you just
Yep.
got to figure out what that is.
Right. Which is also a struggle. Like forever I
much.
knew what I wanted. But when the thing that I wanted the most, see, my therapist back then told me, she said, the thing that you love more than anything in the world is going to be the thing to destroy you, because you're doing it to such an excess.
Right.
Because I was working all the time.
Right.
And she was like, it's going to kill you, which led to my addiction.
Yeah. I mean, it
'Cause
led
it
you down.
was.
Oh, sorry. No, it led
No,
you
no.
down. It led you down to a point where you needed to find a new identity, it sounds like.
Yep.
Yeah. And it needed a break. It was the universe or God providing you those I guess like trials or just like pressures. I guess that's the way. Pressures that are pressuring you in a way that is forcing you to realize that if you continue, it won't turn out great.
Yeah.
Right? Or you're continuing as much, and then something had to happen to just like wake you up, just like a shock to the system, and then you're
Right.
like, well, I got to figure something else out, or I got to figure, okay, let's do it again, but then we'll do it again different. Right?
Right. Yeah. And you know what? Like, there were so many moments, because I mean, I was having seizures. I mean, I was near
Yeah.
death in the hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
can
like
imagine.
a couple of times, and I was bad off. And I was like, why can't I just die? I really
Right.
was. I was like, what
Yeah.
is the deal? What is the, I
Yeah.
don't give a shit. And there's nothing else I want to do.
Right.
Because I was like, I directed a film.
Right.
I did like, I wanted to get a degree. Like, I
Right.
put myself through school, and it took 8 years, and I worked 3 jobs. But when I graduated, I was debt free, and I paid for it.
That's so cool.
So
Yeah.
I was, but see, that was people saying, when people would tell me I can't go to college because I can't afford it, I was
Right.
like, now that was a different time than it is today.
Sure.
That is not the same thing. So I don't want that to be misconstrued. But I was like, you literally can do anything you want if you want to.
Correct.
Period. But then I was like, I just want to die. But when I got sober, I was like, duh. I had a purpose to fulfill. That's why I couldn't
Correct.
die.
Correct.
I had to help people.
Exactly. And that's very similar to me, because I mean, I told you I'm living a third life. Like, I wanted to die
Yeah.
2 other times, right? Absolutely. First time I was willing to die, and I gave my life, and that's when I gave my life to God. Second time was when the solar eclipse happened, like very, very recently, right? very much
Yeah.
recently. I mean, that was a humongous shock to my system because I've always relied on my intellect to be able to guide me along, right? In a way, and I'll always be able to like identify certain things. But this is the point where it wasn't necessarily that particular point of like money being taken from me, the betrayal. It was more of my sin in the sense that it was so great that the Holy Spirit within me was very much hurt, and I was hurt very much because I sinned against my new wife in the way. And so very much so, I just got married in March, right? And then this year, March 15th, 2024.
Wow.
2024, yeah. March 15th, 2024, solar eclipse happens, and then I got taken for advantage of. But I was doing it for a while. And so like that's the problem. It's like I was growing in sin. I was growing in that particular negative energies of the world, even though I wasn't meant to. And I gave my life to the light and to the divine. And when I was filling with this negative, it kept spiraling a little bit more so. And then it happened where that happened on the solar eclipse. Boom. It was pretty wild. But it was my deceit and my own betrayal with my wife. It was my own sort of like my own actions that have led me to that point. And so that's where I had to learn. I had to repent, and I look at it like penance. I'm currently going through a repentance of my sin, and this is all happening within. I mean, I don't go to a church. I don't go to a
Yeah.
priest. I don't go to a religion, right? The religions are built by constructs of environmental needs, right? In the different areas, different kinds of things. But I believe there is one God. And I believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. And so that's the particular point that I found that I find resonance with because of my particular saving of the story I told earlier. So yeah, I think one thing that I did want to mention is when you're going through this change and you're going through these periods of change, I remember, and this is the point where I wish somebody told me. Well, they did, but I didn't believe it. But you become unrecognizable to your old friends and your old life.
That's right.
You become unrecognizable. And so everyone's going to be like, who are you? Never seen you before. You're going to become a different person all around. But just have hope, have faith that like if you keep going, you will find the people who will resonate with you. And AKA are chatting here today,
Yep.
right? We're able to chat when maybe before we were not able to chat. I was so closed-minded, so closed off to the world that I probably wouldn't even heard you, right?
Yeah.
And so it's very much, it's a lonely road. It's like going into the desert, right? It's like
Right.
it's a lonely road. And we just have to remember that the more we stay on the path and the more we keep on moving forward, there will be signs that we're in the right direction. People could call it a glitch in the matrix. People could call it a difference or a particular spiritual pathway or guidance of sorts, ancestral guidance. I mean, I believe ancestors are very strong as well, and that's something that I've never really explored. But I believe that there's a lot of forces out there, and I just choose to believe in God and Jesus Christ. And so it's a very lonely road when you are going through a change in every possible way, because you could be with God or you could not be with God, and you could still go through a change. But one, you won't feel lonely when you believe in a higher being and God, and you would feel very, very lonely before without that. And so that's where I walk my path now. And I don't feel as lonely, and I feel a sense of peace. I feel peace in my life for the first time that I never really had. Even though I just told you I'm going through something so traumatic right now, and how am I so loving to the world? How am I so resilient to these negative forces? It's these modern day alchemy. It's taking these forces, converting it, learning the lessons, taking these lessons, and then sharing them, bringing to light the darkness that is out there, deceiving believers and deceiving these people and everybody out there. So I plan to be that beacon and plan to share as much as I can Because like I said, I'm just a guy just sharing my story. And I'm sharing my story, one, so that it helps me remind myself for my future self when I do go through the dark times again. Because these dark times are not going to go away forever. They will continue to come back. The better you get, the stronger the challenges become. And so,
Yes, that's exactly right.
yes. And so I'm here to share for myself. And it's truly and honestly, it's already proven effective. Because during the period of time where, I made that big mistake, losing the money, and making the mistakes that I've made, it was through my own messages that I found hope. While everyone else was
Yes.
finding hope, while you met me, it was through my own messages to my future self that I found the hope. Because you know what? Who's the person who can know you the best and give you the best advice for you? It's yourself.
That's
And so
exactly right.
that's why I tell everyone I'm only here to affect one person. And truly and honestly, I'm a success if I can affect myself. And
That's
then
exactly right.
if everyone else is along for the ride, amazing. I'm so happy because I will help as many people as possible, bring connected people together. If you could help somebody else, I will connect. I mean, I will do whatever because I am here to just be that beacon and be that light and be that source of truth to share my story, because my story is truth to me. And so if somebody else can find value in my thoughts and perspectives, then I will be able to be walking my path. The more I walk my path, the larger the challenges get, but at the same time, the better I get and the stronger I get in my faith. And so that's what's guiding me. And I believe it's what's guiding you too. But I mean,
Absolutely.
at the same time, like I said, everyone to each their own and their religion and their beliefs. But I am here and I'm so happy to have met you, Karre. And it's been a
Yeah,
great
you too.
conversation.
Yeah. I really enjoyed it.
Amazing.
And yeah, let's do it again sometime.
Okay, awesome. Is there anything that you want to leave the audience here with?
Um, I don't know. I feel like we've left a lot on the table
Yeah,
tonight. I I don't I don't think so. I just like the story that you were just telling.
yeah,
I was when you were talking about in the darkness, you feel like it's yourself guiding you,
correct.
and I firmly believe that, and I think that any good life coach, any good healer, anybody, they take you to your own inner
Correct.
healer. They take you inside of yourself
Yes.
because you have all of your answers. They're just trapped down. You've got to remember how to access, because we have our own guidance system and we have our own healing system. I mean,
Correct.
even if you had a cold, you have your own healing
Yeah.
system. And we forget that. And I think that um I the best therapist I ever had was one that, it was a type of therapy called CRM. It's
Okay.
called comprehensive resource management,
Okay.
and it implements breath work and sacred
Wow.
geometry and
I love
all
that.
the things that I love. But it's a regression therapy, and I literally talked 98% of the time. I mean, she would ask a question and then I would speak. And I basically cried for 9 months straight.
Wow.
Almost, because I was seeing her 3 times a week at
Yeah.
this period of my life. But
Wow.
it's really like, if I was going to leave anything on the table for anybody, it
Yeah.
would be, you have everything that you need inside of you.
Love it. I agree wholeheartedly. That is amazing.
Yeah.
Well, very cool. Very cool. And once again, it's been amazing to talk to you, Karre. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day. I mean,
Absolutely. It was
because
great. It was great fun for me. It was good too, because this is the path I want to go down. So
well,
I
it's
appreciate it.
absolutely, and I will be here. I mean, you can just send me messages anytime. We could also do this again. We
Okay.
could look to do this again. Whatever that looks like, and we can work it out. So, This is
Yeah, I
exciting.
think we can collaborate on some kind of, I don't know what yet, but I think that we definitely can collaborate on something really cool.
Absolutely. Agreed. Well, thank you so much, Carrie. I don't want to take any more of your time. You have a great rest of your day, and it's been a pleasure meeting you. Thank you so
You
much.
too.
Have a great day.
Absolutely.